makes a motion to approve.
That's all last week's stuff.
Do anything fun over the weekend?
You basically just follow along here as we go down,
With what?
all in a line.
Two weddings on one day.
On one.
So I love that Lisa, this is
Well,
what
one
she,
wedding.
you didn't always get this,
The other
is like she
wedding
prints
on
out the
the
agenda for us. So we have the agenda, but then we can like be in the packet, like
Right, and this
following
is,
along.
that's,
You're the
that's what I was
designated
hoping, because I
driver.
was gonna print this off and bring it just to have it.
Yep.
And then if you're in the packet, you know, going down.
Hotels.
Really?
And this is a long packet. But it's all,
That's
the
neat.
handbooks.
The handbooks in there.
I noticed that.
Oh, 6 o'clock.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our Monday, August 26, 2024 Cascade City Council meeting. We'll have a call to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Oliphant. Here. Weber.
Here.
Hush.
Here.
Gale.
Here.
Delaney.
Here. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Oliphant,
I'll second it.
second by Weber. All in favor?
Aye.
Before public comment, I'd like to make a comment about Hometown Days and what a great event. Everybody just raved about that. The Hometown Committee, Hometown Days Committee, all the volunteers, donors to make that such a great event. And I don't think there was a negative comment from anybody on the event. So thanks, everybody, for a great event for Cascade.
If I could piggyback off of that, Steve, I, as one of the new Cascade High School dance coaches, would love to thank the city public works guys for cleaning up the payloader
Yeah.
and for doing something different this year and dumping our ducks for the Duck Regatta over the bridge for us. That was huge. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year, and we are so grateful to all the public works employees for their hard work on that.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have public comment. You have a limit of 3 minutes per person on agenda items and local government issues. Seeing none? Oh, gotcha.
Johnny Joe.
John McGuire. A few years ago, a young man stood up here, and I thought he spoke very well about the increase in the sewer rate once the sewer plant came in. And I'm sure the council listened, but it had no impact on the charges. I haven't heard of anybody in Cascade that likes their sewage rate right now. And I would like the council to consider how expensive it is, especially if there's a catastrophe. I know of a case where a young family of 5 used 15,000 gallons of water, which would cost them $100, and their sewer bill that month would be $200. And I think that the young man spoke to 2 segments of our community, the old and the young, with families. And I would like the council to maybe speak. I think Matt and Chantel do a great job of trying to prevent those types of things from happening, but sometimes it's unpreventable. And I would like the council to take a real serious look at not only providing some help with the water in this catastrophe situation, but also the sewer. Can't imagine just water from a running toilet running down the sewer that costs us that much additionally. So I mentioned the last time, I'd like to see Cascade Nice be a word that we don't, words that we don't just say, but be words that we live.
Thanks, John. Consent agenda.
Jason Delaney from 120 Thomas Street, Cascade. A couple things regarding some supposed streets, some other things. There's one behind me It's called Dillon Street. It's kind of in the middle of my property. I'd kind of like to see that be vacated or me purchase it from you guys. I'd also like to, I know you guys are working on Langworthy and the back corner of Thomas Street, which obviously I don't need to go into details about it because I don't get enough time. But obviously, I'd also have to say we need to look into DeLong Street, that going east or going west, it ain't going nowhere. So I haven't talked to the neighbors that are next to me. Either one of us, I buy the whole thing, or we split it in half. I think it's time to shut it down, so then this way, for me being in town for 17 years, I hear a lot of I'm parking on the right of way, or I'm doing this, or I'm moving this. I think it's time to put it to rest, because obviously I just rebuilt my business after a catastrophe in July 28th of 2023. I'd like to get more parking, obviously, because I got ice cream up there. I got a nice shop going on right now. I think it's just something that we need to consider about looking into, is along with Langworthy and Thomas, is also looking at Dillon and DeLong Street. And obviously, I mean, just kind of work from there, and obviously then everything would be in a big, basically a block for me. And then obviously I can keep everything neat. Trying to put a fence up that's 8 foot, going to be 8 foot tall. Obviously, everything will be behind everything we do, then all the supposed junk or whatever you want to per se call that stuff that I tow or do. Obviously, it's behind a fence, so nobody can complain about it. It'll just be a lot neater. It'll go good with the hoop buildings that we plan on putting up there. Once we kind of get the fence project done, on the back side of the building, which would be the south side, we're leveling it off and putting hoop building containers, or container hoop buildings up, and we're putting another one up so that we can store a lot of our stuff inside instead of having it outside. For the ones that want to know why there's a shed supposedly on the street still, we're still in a delay also with the 3-phase box isn't there yet. We're still in delay of other items with this new world we live in. There's a lot of stuff on back order, so my building isn't 100% there. It is a shell up, but we still have a delay in, I can't put my new hoist up, can't do all this other stuff without my 3-phase box. So with that being said, we are moving stuff, we are cleaning stuff up. We do got a shed that is sitting in the street, but that's gonna get moved as soon as we're able to level off the back half on Thomas Street. And we just found out this week that we have a gas line that is actually ran on the opposite side, which obviously some people are aware of that situation. The other thing is as well, I have Dave Schneider coming to find all the pins in the area, because they haven't been found since 1976 up in my whole block. Obviously, my dad actually worked for Sigurd Brothers since he was 16 years old. On DeLong Street, with that being said too, is actually on DeLong Street. That is where they always put their junk combines and junk tires, okay? So I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but obviously there used to be stuff in the middle of the street. That's why I'm just saying it doesn't go nowhere. But with that being said, I think that we could make this work a lot better if we bought it or did something with it. But I am trying to clean up as quick as I can, but there is some hiccups with back order stuff. I just thought I'd inform everybody what was going on. And then obviously with Dillon and DeLong and the other ones that Lisa and I think some others are aware of that we're trying to get something done with. Other than that, that's all I have, so thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
I'm Monica Waker, and I represent the Cascade Library. And I am just here to say how sad I am that Lisa will be resigning. I know Lisa did not want to resign, and I'd like to know who of any of you in this panel, in this room, don't have people who don't think that they have faults. You all try to do the best you can for us. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes, I guess it's hard to be an administrator. And I'm just so sad. I'm mad, but I'm sadder, Lisa, that you're leaving us. And from the day that she came, she worked tirelessly with all the committees, with all the fundraising that she's done, over $1,900,000 in 28 months. That's a lot of money for Cascade. We would not be where we are today without Lisa. And every time I walk into the library, Lisa, I will think of you and thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
I'm equally as sad, but I had a conversation with you last October, Lisa, and I think that that shows a world of the problem. I mean, we stood right out there, and you said the calculation would be totally different, that you had to give all the people on this council what they wanted, and it would be totally different if I were on there. It's the people out there, and people are feeling like victims, not the beneficiaries of this government. And there were a lot of people in here the last time, and they were upset. The city's in debt. We have, all of our fee structure has tripled, doubled, tripled, quadrupled. We have a raft of new ordinances. You can't have your porch sale or your yard sale till you sell all your stuff. You gotta shut it down in 2 days, or whatever the ordinance says. People expect to be the beneficiaries of their government, not the victims. And that's been a problem. And I hope, because you're so effective, you're so intelligent, you're just so good at what you do, if you just pay more attention to the democracy and the people. And you too, sir, looked at me in January. I haven't been coming to meetings.
Shirley,
You looked at me.
Shirley, your tone.
You looked at me and you said, this isn't a democracy, this is a republic. And us people make the decisions. Well,
Thank you.
Who makes the decisions?
Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm just here to tag on to what John McGuire was talking about. I'm not sure if it's something that you guys would be willing to put on the next agenda, but as a utility manager, it's something that I deal with a lot. I know several years ago, although it wasn't written as part of the ordinance, the intent, my understanding, and Bill and Steve are probably the only ones that can speak to this, is when there was something passed in regards to a forgiveness on the sewer and water side, the intention at the time was if there was some type of a catastrophe, that there'd be a one-time forgiveness. It is written in such a way that if it's inside your house, you can't have the forgiveness because it goes down the sewer. The only way they can get it is if it's outside, like a faucet or something breaks. So I think that's the tough conversation when people call, and I know there's other people that are having, I mean, $15,000 is hard for this young family, but I've seen $70,000, and I've seen another person recently with $50,000. In the last 6 months, there's been 3 people with high. And so
Not
it's hard.
dollars, gallons. You just said dollars.
I'm sorry, gallons.
Gallons.
50,000, yeah, 50,000 gallons, 70,000 gallons. Sorry,
It is
not
not
dollars, but it still
Come on.
equates to like $2,000 on their bill. So they're calling me to say like, what can I do about this? And I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do for you. So I don't know if it's something that could be a conversation. And I don't know what it costs to put money down the sewer when the water goes down, if there's no sewage versus just water running down, if a water heater breaks or your softener recycles or whatever the case may be, but I'm just asking if there's something that you guys
And
think
with a basement bathroom, you can have a leak in
Toilet
there
running.
that nobody noticed for
Yep.
months.
Yep, correct. Actually, one's a toilet, one's a water softener, and I think one was a water heater that
Yeah.
broke when no one was there. So it's just something that I would appreciate if it's something that you think that you would want to review it again to see if it's a possibility for people to have some type of one-time forgiveness, because it is something that we get calls about.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jason Fagan, 729 Riverbend Drive. Recently, I received a 80,000 gallon water bill here. And we were gone quite a bit the month of July, and family vacations, get home. They did a wonderful job. Let me know that there's an extreme amount of water usage. So I'm curious it's a very large sum for the sewer bill on this. I mean, the water is one thing, we went through it, but it's back, the water softener went out. Herb Modernak said he's never seen this twice, and I've done it twice now. And so I'd ask for something to be looked at also, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll go to consent agenda, minutes, city council 8/12/24 and 8/19/24. August 26, 2024 claims. Is there any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Hush,
Second.
second by Oliphant, all in favor?
Aye.
Number 7, resignation of City Administrator Lisa Cotter.
After our
You're up.
closed session, I believe that a number of you wanted to make sure that the public knew, so I had agreed that we would announce that my last day will be September 11th, so 2 weeks from this coming Wednesday, and then I'll be starting a new job the following week. So for all of you that I got to work with, I appreciate everything, and I wish you the best. Hopefully, things will continue on with the projects that we're in the middle of. I do think perhaps people don't really understand the level of work that happens, and I hope that you as a council recognize, I've heard people saying things about we only need one person or we don't need a city administrator. You certainly don't have to have a city administrator, and that's your policy decision, but I would think long and hard about the level of work that comes out of City Hall prior to you doing that. I know how busy I am, and I know that my timesheet says at least 60 hours a week, and I don't get everything done in the quickest fashion. So I would just encourage you to make sure that as you think about things going forward, that you really work hard on what it is that you need for staffing. And any questions that anybody has after I leave, certainly my phone will still work when I move. And I, again, just want to thank everybody who's been supportive and giving me the opportunity a couple of years ago to come here. So thank you.
And I'd like to thank you for all the good things you've done for Cascade.
Thank you, Mayor.
It's quite a list.
Thank you.
I also want to take this opportunity to thank Lisa for her service to Cascade and all the incredible things she has accomplished for our community in just 2.5 short years. Over $1.9 million in grant funding, starting a library building project, the Oak Hill Park, the dog park, overseeing the Highway 136 project, just to name a few, that this community owes you a debt of gratitude. We may not have always liked what guidance you gave us, but we do have to recognize that that knowledge base that you have and the understanding of our ordinances is going to be extremely difficult to replace. I regret the way your tenure here has come to an end, and I am disappointed in the way some of the people on this council and in this community have chosen to behave. I hope that moving forward, we as a city council will hold each other accountable for upholding the ordinances of this community in a fair and equitable manner. We as elected officials in this community need to be better at modeling the behavior we expect of the city employees and our children, so that we can promote the growth of our community for the good of today and the future. Lisa, thank you so much for everything you've done for Cascade. You will be greatly missed.
Thank you.
Number 8, open public hearing on fence regulations ordinance. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
Motion by Oliphant,
I'll second it.
second by Weber. All in favor?
Aye.
We are in public hearing.
Planning and Zoning had their public hearing, I think, 2 weeks ago. I believe I explained this at the last meeting, but we already have 8-foot fences in a few places, mostly in industrial. There was one in a more residential area that was given a variance. But I think it makes sense, that's kind of what we talked about, that especially when you're in an industrial area or in a what we would call highway commercial zone, that we allow people to have more of a shelter from what's going on inside their building or inside their property. And so Planning and Zoning is recommending to the City Council to allow for 8-foot fences. It would be in 3 of the zones, so nothing residential, that would remain 6 feet. Yeah, 6 feet. And then this would be for highway commercial and for the 2 manufacturing. The one that it would not for commercial would be the downtown area. So obviously everybody's kind of compact in the center of town here, so we wouldn't allow it there. But that's the recommendation of Planning and Zoning. There's a requirement for you in any zoning code changes to have a public hearing as well. And so this would be yours. And then I've drafted an ordinance that allows that. The thing that Planning and Zoning discussed and added, which I added in yellow in the ordinance, is that, and we've discussed this a number of times since I've been here, right now you don't regulate where the fence goes. So technically I have to tell people that they're allowed to put it right up to their property line. But I always preface that with, remember that when you put it on there, if you don't get along with your neighbor, that technically they could call you out for trespassing if you need to weed whack on the outside, if it's a wooden fence and you want to stain it, if you have maintenance to do and you can't do it from the inside. So they would like to add that, which is fairly common in some communities, not all, but that they would recommend it being 2 feet back from the private property line. They also have, and again, some communities do this, where they kind of call it like the pretty side or the ugly side. So if there's fence posts, they are recommending that we say that the posts have to face into the property owner that put up the fence, that you don't put the post to the outside fence. So that's kind of, communities will say that the outside, whether it's people driving by or their neighbors, get to see the side without the posts. I think with some of the ways that new fencing material, I think that's less common. Obviously, like with chain link, it doesn't matter. I think with some of those vinyl fences, it doesn't matter either, where the post just kind of goes along. So that is one of the recommendations. And then the last one, they didn't really want to put this as a requirement, but they are saying that in the case of, like Jason, who's putting up his fence at Delaney's, where he abuts residential, that they would like to at least encourage people who come in for a fence permit, that they would be encouraged to somehow shade it, whether that's with a shade fabric, whether it's a solid wood fence, whether in the case of a chain link fence, that they would install the slats that make it less visible from the outside. So we listed that as an encouraging thing, which then at least it gives some direction for people to talk to and be able to explain that. So besides the 8 foot being allowed, those 3 things were added by planning and zoning. I don't know if there's any questions, otherwise we have this after the after the public hearing, it's listed as a first reading for tonight.
I would say move that our 8-foot fence is not really high enough if you're trying to block stuff out. So I would like that at 10 foot, because even if you put an 8-foot fence up and you want to put barbed wire on it, you know, about top, you know, you're above 8 foot.
Do you want to say only going higher if it's for barb?
No, I would say put it at 10 foot instead of 8 foot. Maximum.
Again, that's up to the council. If anybody agrees.
Because of the areas that it's in.
I think, I mean, I'm not discriminating in any way, shape, or form on it. I have no issue with that. But I think in this case, probably the best thing would be to do is to kick it back to planning and zoning and see if they agree. That'd be good with you?
Yeah.
That'd be good with you?
Mm-hmm.
Bill, are you good with that?
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's what we, just to see if they would want to take that on as
Right.
going to 10 foot.
I guess I'm gonna have to ask legal counsel. I've never really had anybody try to change it like with that new height where we advertised it for 8 feet. I don't know if we then need to go back out to public hearing again because we said 8 versus 10.
Versus 10.
So either you could do the first reading for this, so at least we have something higher than 6, and then I could come back to the next meeting with if they think it has to start over. If they do, then I can re-advertise a public hearing, but I'm not sure if they would say that because we said 8 and then we're going higher, if they would say that we should re-advertise.
Can we approve the 8 and then
That would be more comfortable for me because I know
go
that.
back to the zoning board and
Yeah.
ask them if they would want to
At least it gets it
amend or
higher,
adjust to
and
10?
then, yeah, to me, that seems better.
Okay.
Especially knowing that,
If Mark's good with that, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think 10 foot, you know, like I said, if you get an 8 foot, if you really want to keep people out, you put the barbed wire on top, and that extends out like this, probably at least another
technically
foot
would
and
be,
a half.
right, would technically make it higher then.
So,
I would maybe go with, let's just carry on if you're okay with this, and if you want to go higher, then let's just redo it one more time, but at least this is in place for the ones that are 8 foot, if that's okay with everyone.
Yep.
I'm fine with that.
I need a motion to close public hearing?
May I comment?
Yep.
Al Nepper, 105 Washington Street, and my brother Gary, 105 Washington Street. We own the warehouse building on the corner of Washington and DeLong, and the vacant lots that extend from the west along DeLong all the way to the east. My comment would be, when we get down to item number 17, the council's going to have to wrestle with a fence that has already been installed that, you know, blatantly encroaches on the city property and the right-of-way on the lawn. So I guess when I look at the ordinance here, 8 feet, fine, 10 feet, fine. We don't need a fence abutting us. There's nothing there bad to look at. How the neighbors up the hill deal with that, that's fine. But the big thing here is the responsibility to do a survey. And I heard already this evening that there's going to be surveys done, and people are questioning surveys. And I don't know how you do it. I'm just throwing it out, but it's in a commercial industrial area, so it wouldn't be a big responsibility for a private homeowner. But when you're looking at businesses, should there be a responsibility to put your fence up based on surveys? If it abuts city property, as item 17 you're going to be dealing with, should the city verify where the markers are and everything? So we're not looking at, something like item 17, where the fence has already been put up. It's 12 feet into the right-of-way and the city property, and now you got to figure out what are we going to do about it. So the homework that I think everybody would like to see put in just prevents problems down the road. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I can comment on that, obviously I've issued a lot of fence permits in the last 2.5 years. I've issued building permits that affect people's property lines. And people didn't love that we increased the fees to $150, $300, or $400 for a new house. What I always explain to people is it is your responsibility to make sure that you put your fence and your setbacks for property things, like you have to find out where your pins are. And sometimes I'll explain that while you don't have to have a formal survey, that we don't require that, you do need to make sure that you can find your pins to be able to do that. And sometimes we'll encourage people to call Mike Weber just to be able to see if they can come out. But most surveys would cost somewhere, I would say, no less than $800 for somebody to actually do all those corners. And so when you're talking about, that doesn't exempt people from not making sure that it's in the right place. But people also get complacent when they get along with their neighbors, and they'll say, oh yeah, well, like, we're good. And I'm like, well, you're all good till you're not, because as soon as you don't get along with your neighbor, then they'll call you out, and if it's not on your property, then you're gonna have to move it. And so we try really hard to make sure that people do that. I know of no city that would ever do the surveying, because you would be, we'd have to budget tens of thousands of dollars for us to do that, and it's your responsibility. I also think that there would be quite a burden on people if you required a survey. I always try to be really good about explaining it and doing the best that we can. Another reason why, while people don't always like the change that's occurred since I've been here, things like the building inspector, are things where when we do regular permits for structures, we have Craig from ECIA come out. This council chose not to do that with fences, and so we don't have an inspection process before, and we only charge $75. But it costs a minimum of $100 for Craig just to come here and inspect. So some of the things that would be helpful maybe are to reconsider that. We certainly dabbled in the having a real building inspector who's certified coming kind of gradually. We didn't go into them coming to look at electric and to look at plumbing. They're really just helping us with setbacks. And so something that you need to think about. I don't know that it's practical to say that everybody would have to get a survey, but it is important that people do their best to get all that information ahead of time. I would agree with that. It's just, that would be a huge burden. You can just look at the cost of the one that we're gonna talk about later. That's $1,200, so.
And as far as survey pins, just because there's a piece of metal in the ground doesn't mean that's what
That's
you
right.
measure off of. There's angle iron, there's re-rod, unless you know what it is, you don't know the distance until it's surveyed.
People like to look at beacon. I always tell people beacon doesn't,
They're not accurate.
can't go.
We're dealing with that tonight, right? That they're not accurate.
Right, things that, we've seen some, like when we took Langworthy Court, that was like skewed. It looked like people's front yards weren't in the road and the road wasn't in the right of way. So, you have that often, but it's gotta be some compromise. And again, nobody likes fees. But to make sure things are done correctly, it costs money. Just like when you talk about other things later, but the cost of doing business is not cheap, so.
I need a motion to close public hearing then.
Make motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Gale,
Second.
second by Delaney, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 10, consideration of ordinance number 19-24, fences, heights, fence post, and location from lot line, and this is the first reading.
Again, I'd recommend proceeding with this, and then I'll see what I can get going about a 10-foot additional 2 feet.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Motion by Oliphant,
I'll second.
second by Delaney, roll call.
Oliphant?
Aye.
Weber?
Aye.
Hush?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Delaney?
Aye.
Number 11, consideration of resolution number 76-24, purchase of camera system for City Hall, EMS Center, and Parks.
In your packet, as you know, from the last meeting, we had 4 proposals. Mike can explain, but he met with the park board. They were comfortable with proceeding, and Mike's recommendation is to go with Comelec, so that's the one that I put in there. The total for the one-time purchase of the cameras would be $23,579, with an annual licensing fee for this upcoming year of $1,859. Obviously, everyone understanding that those annual licensing fees are subject to change each year, so not that you would see them drastically increase, but that would be the going forward budgeted amount. That's all I have.
Yeah, I talked to the park board. Comelec ended up being the lower of the group anyway. And with them being in Dubuque County and servicing this area already, I think they're just a natural fit for us. It's the same camera system that we were originally looking at. There were some other really good ones, including one that had an outfit out of using the software and stuff that Dubuque uses. Unfortunately, that one's just out of our price range. It's just too high. But I think this will be a good fit for Cascade, and I think the availability of Comelec to be able to service when we need help, that'd be helpful.
And their maintenance fees are just what their normal maintenance rate is if you need anything.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
What's the warranty on this, Mike?
What's that?
What's the warranty?
They're usually about a year warranty with a replacement about every 5 is generally what they're recommended in all the warranties on. I'll get a direct quote from them for the warranty on them. I think the last one, and I didn't bring it with me, I know I have it, but I think it's a 1-year warranty on the cameras themselves. Might be a little bit longer. But they recommend that they be replaced every 5.
So you're saying future going forward, that every 5 years you'd have to be looking at?
Right. Even when I sat with Dubuque in there, just going back and them showing camera views from a camera they had installed 5 years prior to a newer one they have, just even the digital technology just changes so much in software. It's not even necessarily the hardware equipment, but the digital software just makes that big of a difference. I mean, you can always push them out in, but that is recommended, it's about every 5 years.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
Like the EMS, I mean, is there an alarm system up there as well? How does the police department find out that there's?
As far as EMS and the alarm system, I thought there was some type of, they have secured locks, but I don't know if they have an actual security system in there yet.
There's not a security system. They
We
just
are
have a
talking
keypad.
about for windows and doors being something on the idea for that next going in.
What did you mean, though? How does the police what?
Well, in other words, I mean, there you have case of pharmaceutical drugs and those type of things. You know, I mean, there's police for potential break-ins more so than some of these other locations perhaps.
No, I had to
And how would a?
There's
I mean,
extra
is there-
security for the medicine. That's in its own locked box, so.
Well, irregardless, if they want in though.
And it was part of the reason for the cameras too, was that we have some type of,
I'm wondering about real time. I mean, is the police
like if a
department?
window gets open or a door gets open on off time, security system like that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if this also somehow alerted.
I mean,
For them to.
Can you have an alert like you can with Blink?
If a car pulls up or somebody is spotted on the premises or whatever, you can get notifications, yeah.
Okay, so if there's any activity.
Yeah, I could
within-
have it,
in-
I could have it like, either whoever they want up there, probably Kim or Mike or somebody, get it like a notification that there is movement or something on the premises.
And it could just be they would get the notice for their cameras.
Right.
If there's nothing else, I need a motion on resolution number 76-24.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Gale,
I'll,
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
second by Oliphant, roll call.
Weber,
Aye.
Hush,
Aye.
Gale,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Number 12, consideration of ordinance number 20-24, correction of election terms of office. This is the first reading.
So we got good news after we met with the state, the Secretary of State, to explain after we explained everything last time. As you remember, last time, somehow we erred in adopting an ordinance that changed the terms of office for the city council from 4 years to 2 years. And that was done as a part of the recodification and unnoticed based on the fact that ECIA's template that they use changed it to 2, which I found out that that is the norm unless a community changes it to 4. So that's why they use that as their starting template. It's the changing it to 4 that you have to do. Nobody starts off with 4. So, and again, reminding you that ECIA was not involved in that process after it was delegated to city staff. So what we found out was that there's 2 kinds of cities. There's home charter cities, which most cities in Iowa are not. The city of Clinton would be the closest city to Cascade that has that kind of a city. And so they are one of very few cities that could have gone through the process that we did, where you simply adopt an ordinance that's adopted by the city council and can change your term. And then it would open up for a 30-day period for community members to come forward and ask for that to be changed. In the case of all other cities, which we are, it must be changed by an election of the people. And so basically what the Secretary of State came back and said that that ordinance was deemed invalid because there never was an election. And so we are actually back to square one in a good way, that those of you that were elected last November are still in fact under a 4-year term. And those of you that were, you know, obviously we already knew that the first 3, Mike, Megan, and then Mark, based on Riley's vacancy, that you're obviously still intact. So we will not need to stagger terms. Everyone will not be up next November. It'll be carrying on as normal. But based on our legal counsel's advice, we still need to go through the process of readopting the ordinance. Although when you, to make sure that our book online states it correctly. And what you'll see in the ordinance, we tried to make it clear that it was kind of based on an error as opposed to looking in the, if somebody were to look back at this. So when you look at some of the whereas statements, it talks about that it was changed without the specific notice of the council to reflect a 2-year term instead of the long-standing 4, whereas it plainly requires that said changes to council members' terms must be by petition and election, and that the recodification is void and ineffective as a matter of law. So we're making it clear in these whereas statements why this is being changed, that if somebody looked back, they wouldn't just think that. And I apologize, there is, like if you look at this, something has to be done about Adobe. When I scan these in, it like decides to change words. So this is not my ordinance. If you look at like the 2.11, it's got gibberish in there. And I don't know what's happening, but anyway. So this would be a first reading. I think we should probably just go through the regular 3 readings since it would be done. There's no election pending or anything like that. But to be clear again, it was an invalid ordinance. None of your terms changed, and we do not have to alter anything in the upcoming election, which is good news.
Do I have a motion to that effect to do this in one reading?
Just the first reading.
The first reading.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Delaney,
Second.
second by Hush, roll call.
Hush.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Delaney.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Weber.
Number 13, consideration of resolution number 79-24, Board of Adjustment appointment.
As you know, we have a vacancy from the death of Whiskers McDermott that was on the board. His term will end, his term would have ended in 2028. And we had a new letter from Eric Honda.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Eric Honda to the Board of Adjustments. He's expressed interest in city government, and I think the Board of Adjustments would be a great starting point for him.
Motion by Oliphant, second by Weber, roll call.
Gale.
Aye.
Delaney.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Hush.
Welcome, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Number 14, consideration of resolution number 81-24 to set a public hearing on vacation of right-of-way Buchanan Street Southwest between 5th Avenue and Riverview Drive.
So we talked about this last time. I did tell Paul and Cindy that this was just kind of semantics. And so I indicated to them that it'd be better for them to come in 2 weeks when we're actually talking about the decision. I also was able to get a hold of, on Friday, the gentleman across the street who has the other corner, and explain to him what was going on. He, again, was unaware that his front yard was not his front yard. And that one, if you remember, is a little bit different because in the case of Dorothy's land, it shows on Beacon as her property and has been paying taxes. In the case of Mr. Cannon, it does not show. But again, and so that's where it wouldn't have ever come up in his title search because he's only owned the house for a few years. But because he doesn't own it, it's just a matter of like, you know, he didn't know what Beacon was. He never was aware of it. So I did explain, you know, he doesn't need to go forward with this when we decide these things, but obviously someday if he goes to sell his house and someone knows about it, that's his front yard is 2 feet from the edge of his door, and that he doesn't go all the way to the curb line, that it's probably best to do that. I know that people thought that we should charge nothing or charge $1. I kind of went back and looked at different things that come out from the state. Again, no one is trying to be disrespectful to those who have to pay for it. But what you have to remember as elected officials is that you represent the public who owns something and that we're not allowed to give away public things to people for free. So I have taken the liberty in trying to be in a compromising way that if we were to calculate the number based strictly on the formula that you gave as your city policy back in 2021, which I put in the packet that explains how you do it, how you calculate it going forward. The number for Mrs. Estrin could be between $4,000 and $8,000. I think that we can make a justification to have it be less because she's been paying taxes. It's not a huge amount for that portion. Obviously, the bigger amount is for her house. But I think you go into dangerous territory if you're going to like $1 and things like that. And so I have explained to Paul and Cindy that my recommendation would be $1,500. My recommendation for Mr. Cannon is $2,000 because again, he has not been paying taxes and his parcel is a tiny bit, even though his piece is a little bit smaller than Dorothy's. I think that because he hasn't been paying the taxes, again, if we're trying to not establish some policy where everybody can just have land for free, I don't think it's wise to do anything less than this.
And they had paid taxes for years, Estrin's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where it is significantly less. Again, when I use your strict policy here from 2021, if I take the neighboring, again, for those of you that are listening, basically it says that you take the value of the land around it. So you would normally, in this case, be taking right-of-way land that doesn't have a value. So you would take all the parcels around it, come up with a per square foot value, and then take how many square feet you're giving those people, and you do that. If I take all the properties around Dorothy, the number is $8,000. If I take only Dorothy's property, it's $4,000. And so we're making it less than half of that at my recommendation. You're not deciding that now. This is just, in order to set the public hearing, you at least have to put out there a number that's possible. And what you are voting on tonight is just to direct me to have the ad in the paper, which would mean that 2 weeks from now, we would have the public hearing, and that's when you would make the decision. And I have to draft an ordinance to bring before you. So I don't know if there's any discussion, but again, it's really strictly tonight just to get the public hearing ad in the paper.
Any questions?
Well, over the weekend, before I even read the suggested amount, I came up with the exact same figure. It's kind of,
4 and 8, you mean?
what's that?
The 4 or the 8?
No, I'm starting out with 4.
Oh.
And I think they've owned it for 40 years. I mean.
And paid taxes.
Over time. Just throwing numbers out, I mean, I don't know if they're paying $50 for, the actual lot per year on average, who knows? That takes it down to $2,000. I actually ran into Paul, he said they took down a tree this spring. They got a letter, I assume, took down a tree, it was $500. So, believe it or not, I mean, I came out with the exact same figure, $1,500, after taking $4,000 minus $2,000 minus $500. So I was happy to see that it was
Must have been sending me vibes, or I was sending you vibes.
Yeah, something, I don't know. So
you can live with that.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Anybody else?
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Delaney,
Second.
second by Hush. Roll call.
Delaney?
Aye.
Oliphant?
Aye.
Weber?
Aye.
Hush?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Number 15, consideration of resolution number 82-24, City Hall gym wall padding purchase in the amount of $18,015. Cascade Youth Basketball was lucky enough to raise $15,015, and the city will be donating $3,000 towards the project.
That was the request. Scott Casey and Nick Callahan are here if anybody has any questions. I tried to put in the packet just some information. I know that people, again, I don't know what Adobe did to my documents, but the dark blue, it's like a navy blue, doesn't really come out very well on here, but it'll be more areas padded for the safety of everybody. I know people kind of ask about how we got a green gym, but this would be more of a cougar blue. And then the price was a little bit higher than what they originally intended because they were going to put a logo up. Is it the Cougars logo or is it a city logo? I don't know what you're.
This is a little mock-up. And this is the current, what we have for the current scoreboard.
So we have $20,000 budgeted for this year in capital projects for City Hall. That was where I was proposing that it would come out of as opposed to a park and rec thing. Sometimes park and rec is kind of the one overseeing City Hall, but the mayor had indicated he wanted it to come straight to the council as they're ready to go. And are you able to get it up if we decide tonight in time for girls' season?
Yes. The biggest issue, the reason that we started this process is we had a lot of kids diving. As you guys well know probably that have ever been down the hall.
Into the stone wall.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there, and we had a couple times where kids were diving for balls and almost hit the corners. So we talked about getting some of it done and what parts would we do, and then we thought, well, let's just start going for donations and took the lead on that. We managed to get quite a bit of donations. We did some fundraising during hometown days, and we pretty much got it mostly taken care of and get it installed, so.
And this will cover the corners, unlike right now, it's
This
just
will cover
The whole thing.
just be in a padded room.
Everything that wall is close to the gym, or close to the
Court.
border lines would be taken care of, so. Thank you.
Thank you guys for all your fundraising. That's awesome.
Good job.
So if the council is supportive, it would be approval of Resolution 8224 in the amount of $3,000, and being clear to make sure that it's a tax exempt purchase, since it's going into a city-owned building. You would see the bill for $18,000, and then prior to ordering it, we would have them give us the $15,000. So the actual net to the city would be the $3,000.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion, 82-24.
Motion by Oliphant,
Second.
second by Hush. Roll call.
Oliphant?
Aye.
Weber?
Aye.
Hush?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Delaney?
Aye.
Number 16, consideration of resolution number 84-24, approval to hire Weber Surveying for Langworthy Street plat in the amount of $1,200.
So we had talked about this last time. I know that Jason spoke at the public hearing, or excuse me, at public comment about the idea of Thomas Street and DeLong and Dillon, which are kind of all of his border ones. I think that's a longer-term decision that has to be made, which you're certainly able to do that. I certainly don't have time to get that done in my 2 weeks here. So it would be if we want to at least proceed with Langworthy, which was already discussed, and Planning and Zoning is recommending Langworthy. They were okay with Thomas Street, but we didn't have all the information for sure about the utilities. But because of the utilities, they were recommending to only do Langworthy. So if you want to have further discussions, it may be warranted, but I just don't think we can do it at the same time. Otherwise, we're delaying all of it. So I would probably proceed with doing Langworthy and then set up assigning to somebody to talk about the other streets.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
So, hang on.
Yep.
So you're gonna do the survey first before you give them a price on the ground?
You have to have a survey, like we just did that.
How are you selling it? Are you selling it?
He has to buy it under the way that we have this policy.
Okay.
Like, this wasn't a DOT gave us land and we didn't give it back. This is just straight up city land, not people's front yards. So the way
You
that,
gotta get a title opinion done?
no, so the way the state law reads is that the reason that I could go ahead with Dorothy's before, like you just
Right.
adopted the resolution, you have to have a legal description. So when I met with Mike, he confirmed for me that there is a legal description of those 39 front feet, and then because Mr. Cannon's is already a lot. So I am not allowed to put a public hearing notice until we have a legal description. Jason knows that he has to pay for it, and we haven't talked about the exact price, but
So what if we get this done and he doesn't agree on the price?
so if you would like, you can proceed to adopt this resolution. I can go back and do the math tomorrow and give it to Jason, and if he's willing to pay that amount, based on the way it calculates, if you say, as long as he says yes to that, then I can keep going. Because I have 2 weeks left, and I don't know who's
Right, but
doing
I'm
stuff
just-
when I'm done, so.
Instead of going and spending $1,200 right away.
Right. Are you okay with that?
He doesn't know the price yet,
Right, I understand.
you know.
But unfortunately, I have to follow state law, which is, it has to have a legal before, so. Can Jason come up and address the council?
Yep.
So, to add to that, I guess, you said about the end of Thomas Street, right? So, I guess my question is can we kind of group back at this with Dillon Street as well as Langworthy? And maybe DeLong at the same time, so then I can write one check instead of writing 3 or 4 checks?
If you want to delay the whole thing, it's just, somebody's got to figure out this process, and somebody's got to be here to write an ordinance and get I'm just concerned that none of it gets done, in at least anytime soon.
Okay.
Because in 2 weeks, there's no one working in the office right now.
How fast would how fast would this work, and how fast can you give me a price, I guess?
So, I mean, I could go on right now.
I
if
mean, where do you get your method, I guess?
So what happens is I have to take the land value, you basically own everything around it,
Correct.
right? So you own the south piece and the north piece.
Right.
So then I have to take your land and whatever you're paying in taxes on that. And then I have to take on Beacon, it'll say like you have 10,000 square feet at whatever the value is, because there's the land value. So then I come up with a per square foot, and then we do the math of the right-of-way, I think I even have it on here, a piece of whatever it was. A 50-foot right-of-way times, I think it was 240 feet.
Okay.
So you take 50 times 240, you get the total square foot, and then whatever your value is right now on the tax roll, we don't get that appraised or anything. Whatever the taxes are, you come up with per square feet times however many square feet you're getting, and then that's what you pay.
Okay.
So you're paying like based on the value of the land around you
Yep.
for the same amount of land.
Fair market value.
So would you prefer the council at least proceed to get this done? Okay.
Let's get this one done then.
So I would say, if you want to make a motion, I would recommend making a motion to approve Resolution 84-24 contingent on the city administrator having a conversation with Jason before Mike proceeds to do the work, Mike Weber, and make sure that he is agreeable to the dollar amount that our calculated policy establishes.
To that effect.
I'll second it.
Motion by Delaney, second by Oliphant. Roll call.
Weber?
Aye.
Hush?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Delaney?
Aye.
Oliphant?
Aye.
Number 17, consideration of resolution number 83-24, encroachment of fence on DeLong Street right-of-way between Thomas and Washington.
So, as I explained in here, Jason and his dad Ralph came up and talked to me about the fence, and they understood that the 8-foot fence that they wanted to put up was not approved yet, and I said, you have a fence permit, you are certainly welcome to proceed, understanding that if you put this in and the 8-foot doesn't go through and they're at 6, that he risks having to cut it back down to 6 feet. But in also having neighbors that are concerned about the amount of exterior things being stored, I was trying to balance like people feeling like we're not doing anything to kind of get the area cleaned up. Jason has been working very diligently lately about, trying to get things that are outside under roof. They obviously had their storm damage, which created a lot more things that are not normally outside to be outside. So they came up and met with me, I think a week or so ago. We went over the fact that the right-of-way was 50 feet wide there on DeLong, and kind of talked about how you would find the stakes measured to the south 50 feet, and then suggested that you, like I always do, don't build right to the lot line. Then once the poles were up, and again, we don't, I guess I wish that I could say that every single time things like this happen, I could stop what I'm doing and go out and look at things, but I didn't have any reason to believe that it would be in the right spot, and Ralph intentionally put it in the wrong spot. And so what we have is that by the time I got up there, I went out there last week, Thursday, after dark with Officer Stainer. I went out to Public Works and got the measuring wheel from Public Works up at the shop, and we went out there just so that, you know, we weren't being bothered by anybody else. We could just kind of have our own conversation. And it definitely encroaches, like I have in here, probably a minimum of 10 feet, perhaps closer to 11 or 12 feet, where they're just too far north with their fence. The other way that we could kind of calculate, it's not a perfect science because, again, like there's a stake in the ground that we believe is a corner stake that's on the north side of DeLong, on the west side of Thomas. And then there's two where Dillon would come north, and they're on the north side of DeLong as well. And so, I don't think this is the right picture. If you go to the next one. There you go. So the blue X's are where it is. So the other, I'm gonna come over here. The other thing that we did was, as Brad and I were standing there, I kind of thought like, okay, it's hard because, again, this isn't like staked perfectly on the area where the road is. And so as you're walking with the wheel and you get to 50 feet, the fence was obviously already there. But just to kind of make more sense of it, like logical ways to look at it. So this is a Weber building, Weber with 2 B's. And this is Jason's land right here. And that frontage between his southern side and up to what would be the DeLong, my first X there, the frontage on Beacon is 130 feet. So just to kind of like make sure that we all understood, and when we went out there and I met with Jason and his dad Friday morning, what I found was that from the corner to the corner of the fence, which is right here and up to there, was 141 feet of fence. So that's just like another way that they didn't do it on purpose. I don't really subscribe to anybody wanting to be in this situation. But not only can you tell that it's too close to the right-of-way, but also if you have frontage of 130 and you install the fence at 141, like that's where I say it's like at least 10 feet and possibly 11, maybe 12. And so instead of me ordering him to take it down, and the fact more appropriate for the council to make this decision. So the way that and obviously the Nappers have already spoken about it. They were contacting me a number of times. I tried to be timely in my responses as they brought up concerns and being respectful to both sides. So the two things that I have before the council, and to keep things moving, I wrote basically two therefores in this. One would be that you allow Jason to keep it there, and that we have an agreement that would get recorded on the parcel that would say, while you are clearly encroaching upon the city's unimproved right-of-way, that he's also been maintaining for lots of years and mowing it and things like that. And there's certainly areas like that's part of, for me, like trying to encourage this fence to get done, is that the goal is to get everything out of the right-of-way and get it on his property. So one option is that we write a legal agreement, it gets recorded, everybody signs it, that clearly states your fence can only be there until which time the right-of-way would be improved. At that time, he would be ordered to take it down, and if he doesn't, he's agreeing in this agreement that we have the right to go in, take the abutting fence down at his cost, and it would be assessed to his property. I think the only way to really protect the future way to make sure that that's documented is, again, it would be recorded at the county recorder's office as a document that carries forward if the Delaney's ever chose to sell their property before something like that would happen. And then, of course, the second option is to order him to take it down, and you can adopt it either way. So it's up to the council.
May I comment?
It's up to the...
Yep.
Alan Nepper at 105 Washington with my brother Gary. Thanks for the attention to this. Put at the top of my sheet here, good fences make good neighbors. And it's something I repeated several times over the course of this. This is not a good fence. It never was a good fence. And again, good fences make good neighbors. We have the warehouse building on the corner there of Washington and DeLong, and we own all of the lots north of DeLong from Washington Street to Thomas. And we, first of all, I guess the big thing is, if the fence stays where it is, it will significantly damage our ability to bring vehicles in and out of our building. The way our building is constructed, it's got large doors and it has open space inside. One of our customers has a 40-foot RV. Another one of our customers has the fifth wheel trailer and the truck are over 50 feet. We have 2 pieces of large tillage equipment that come in and out every year with large tractors. And we have a giant John Deere combine. In order to accomplish this, you have to come in on Washington, and then the customers use the available right-of-way on DeLong Street to pull over and then to back things into the building. If this stays encroaching at 10 feet, this will significantly reduce our ability to get these large vehicles into the building. It will significantly cause us to possibly lose money on 1, 2, 3, 4 customers. It's beyond the pale. This was a blatant encroachment on city property. It was a blatant taking of city property. When the guidelines were real clear, we've got lots of correspondence from Lisa on the 50-foot right-of-way, as well as the 2 to 3 feet, so there's no trespassing. Obviously, this abuts a street or city property rather than private property. So we are very, very, very concerned about the fence staying where it is. We've had no issue with what's going up on the corner of Thomas and the properties up there as far as things that don't look right and fences, etc. We are concerned about what abuts our property. The other concern is that going way back in the council, and I think 3 of you were here, I got to take a break. Actually, we have 2 new council people, Chad and Mark, and I want to welcome you both. The rest have had to listen to me maybe at least one time before. Quickly, I was at Hometown Days. I patted Mark on the shoulder, said congratulations on the new city council job, and he slowly turned to me and said, thanks, and I hope I never have to see you step up to the podium. So, thanks, Mark. I said, I probably won't. I apologize. I didn't keep my word. Believe me, I don't want to be here, nor does Gary. The other thing that's come up that this becomes even more concerning is this idea that if I mow a piece of ground that belongs to the city, then way down the road, I can just have that piece of ground. And it would be like somebody at their house. They say, well, I've been mowing between the curb and gutter and the sidewalk, and I've been doing it for 20 years, so I'm going to put a fence right at the curb and gutter, because I've been mowing that little piece of ground. We've mowed that significant number of times. We've brought fill dirt in to fill up gullies and holes in the street when we have a little bit available. We'd probably do more mowing, but our older equipment, with all the rubber chunks that are on the street, it'd kill one of our mowers. Our neighbor has better, newer mowers that can absorb the rubber chunks and shoot them over toward us. The precedent that, once again, and it's called adverse possession. I mean, it's a legal process. And it was even more alarming to hear tonight that Thomas, I want Thomas, I want Langworthy, I want Dillon, and what the hell I want DeLong Street. So I was really glad Jason stepped up previously. Do you see the pattern here? How? The pattern, and I do appreciate that coming out.
If you can also, as long as you're taking a sip of water, Al, if you want to go to the other picture. I know that I read your email, so I do want to have the council understand that from the building to the edge of the property is 66 feet that I measured on Beacon. And so then if there's a 10-foot, we'll just go with 12, that still leaves 38 feet. So from the front of that building, south would still be over 90 feet. So I understand that's your, if you think it's too hard, I certainly don't know how to back up a trailer, so I can't say, but, using the road to back in and then back up, I just at least thought, because I thought you were gonna bring it up based on your email that you sent me today, that I didn't get over the weekend, at least understanding that I measured that on Beacon at 66 to their edge, and then let's just round off to there'd still be 38 to 40 feet. There's still a significant amount of room there for the customers of the nappers to be able to back in. Whether it's enough, I'm not a backer-upper of things, so.
And I agree with you on two things. I'm not a backer-upper either, but we need to accommodate the customers when they come in. And they do pull on significantly to the right-of-way on DeLong Street in order to accomplish that. The other thing, and again, I'm glad we were sitting here tonight to hear it, the goal, quite frankly,
We do.
Gary and I bought the building in 2015, 2016, and the people that were bidding against us up to the end was Delaney Auto and Ag. So once again, it appears to be a constant harassment of our operation, hoping maybe, well, those guys will just give up and we'll end up with the building and we'll end up with DeLong Street, the city will give it to us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ain't gonna happen. And once again, could care less about Thomas up there and the other streets that are being discussed. But I found it really interesting. We've come to the council before and we've said that Delaney Auto and Ag groomed the upper end of the street and pushed snow and took care of it. And we said, is this the beginning of, well, I get the street because I've been grooming it. We were assured in the city council meeting, multiple ones, that we would never use that to end up giving somebody the street. And here we see the logic of I mow it so I get to own it someday. Total fallacy. And also, I'm concerned that as we're looking at the pricing of Langworthy, what I'm hearing is stop in and see me and you and I will negotiate on the price of Langworthy. Why would this not be discussed in an open meeting? What I thought I heard is, come and see me, I'll put a price on Langworthy, and then based on that discussion, not in public, then we will have it surveyed. Now, if I misunderstood that,
I think
You did.
Yeah, you misunderstood.
okay.
There's a formula out there that they're using to do this.
No, I understand there's a formula, and I've heard it, and yeah, but can that deal be done outside of public viewing?
What it means is that the city, prior to me even being here, said what our calculation was, and this council gave me direction to continue to follow that. And so there's nothing, there's 100 things that happen before any council acts. That's why you have staff to be able to say, if we were sitting here and had to do all of these things in the public, the number will be in the public before it's voted on, but there's 10 steps for one step of the council, and then they take steps, and I have 27 more steps afterwards, because they are volunteers for all intents and purposes, who we could be here for 17 hours on a meeting if they had to do those things. But the policy, that's part of the whole problem that's been with my 2.5 years, is that I get blamed for things that are enacted here, and then I go and act on them. So the policy's in the packet.
So I think there's just general confusion. So what was discussed and was going on there on that last thing is basically, he wants to buy that, but they have to survey it, so there's gonna be cost of surveying it. So before he decides to have it surveyed and pay that cost for the surveying of it, she's letting him know what the cost of that's gonna be to buy it. So that number is gonna come out in the public when that comes around, but then if he knows that number to buy it, and he says, well, I ain't gonna be able to afford that anyway, don't survey it, so then he doesn't have to pay that cost on top of it if he's not gonna buy it anyway.
And thank you.
That's the thing, it's gonna be all.
No, good explanation, and Lisa, thank you for your explanation. But what we're also looking at here is, we agreed in discussion, Lisa, with the landowner, it needs to be 50 feet, and maybe you want to knock it back 2 or 3. It was an agreement. Well, the agreement wasn't held to. That's the overriding concern here. The agreement wasn't honored after all of Lisa's work. And there's a pattern of that.
Lisa, I got a question.
I'm done.
If we were to improve that street, does that get assessed to the property owners? Or
No.
It doesn't?
No, I mean, you could go through something like that if some, like if Jason or the Nappers were gonna sell, or sides of DeLong, you would certainly go through that process. If you were like, hey, like, we don't really have any need to do that, and then they're like, oh, we want to divide it into this much, and here's the tax value, like a normal economic development process, you could say, if you're willing to, you know, you're going to promise to develop these, and instead of it just being a backyard for the Delaney, they're going to sell something over by the Weber building, you would go through that process. But we don't have like an automatic policy that says they have to pay for it. You would deal with that at the time. So I would think, depending, maybe they contribute something towards it like a residential developer does, but definitely not necessarily.
And again, and I will finish, you know, this is just, again, it's a pattern, it's incrementalism, it's taking, it's not living up to your agreement with the city. All of the vacant lots we have along DeLong Street, we have had several people wanting to buy them and develop. We may want to develop them at some point. And any gifting, selling, giving of any portion of DeLong Street severely and financially impacts our ability to future usage of those lots or sale of those lots, so that somebody can come in and build a building and put a business there. Thanks, I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless anybody has questions.
No.
Jason. So, to add to theirs, I don't know if I'm right, I don't know if they're right, I don't know if you're right. That's why I have Dave coming to find the pins, to find out where we need to be. It was an honest mistake going down DeLong to begin with. And you know what? I never bragged about cutting the grass or pushing the snow or doing whatever. I never complained and never did any of that. I'm blessed that I was able to use the city right-of-ways and be able to park there for 48 hours. Thank you. I appreciate you guys letting me do that, okay? But on top of it, I did not truly put the fence where it was at. As you would go to Google Earth, Google Maps, you go to any of these beacon, whatever you want. When I went down to talk to Lisa, me and my dad did, we wanted to find out where the pin was down there. We found where the pin was up above. The reason why we found where the pin was up above is because my building in July 28th of 2023 disappeared, okay? So I had to call Dave in. He had to find the setbacks from the road. So Lisa wanted to make sure, Lisa, if I remember right, it was 40 feet or something, if I remember right. Don't hold me to it. But it had to be 40 feet away before the building went up. So he surveyed that. I didn't do any of the other ground. So in the meanwhile, this whole thing going on here, all of a sudden, I'm over too far. It was supposed to be 50 feet. I went across the road. I ended up finding the one by the John Deere sign. I found a pin, okay? Then I came across. That's how everything kind of got off scaled a little bit, okay? I am over. But again, they're using the right of way to go into their building. They're using your stuff. even if I do move my fence there with 10 foot or whatever, they can come down the other direction and back in there and get in their building too. They can use the ground they have to do it that way if they want. And another thing is, on DeLong, technically with me owning my building where it's at, you cannot bring a semi in to come off of DeLong. You're not gonna fit. You can't bring a straight truck in. You can't bring a gooseneck in, anything, if you're gonna put a business there. So my whole purpose is talk to the neighbor. You wanna buy half, I'll buy half, or either or if you don't, or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not here to argue about that. But again, I'm just telling you, like he stated, if on me, where I'm at, where my building's sitting at, and where DeLong is, you cannot bring a semi in there. You cannot bring a gooseneck in there. It's too tight. It's way too tight to get in out if you ever develop that anyways. And then if you go to the east, which would be going towards where Mark Weber's shop is, let's say, and go down towards Eastern Isle, it's already vacated there. Then you go down by where the John Deere building is, and then you go to the Cascade Lumberyard. That's already vacated and closed. So that's the only reason why I suggested DeLong Street. I'm not up to anything fishy. Dillon Street, for an example, mine's the only existing road that's called Dillon, because where Nappers is, it's vacated. Over by Nappers, it's vacated, okay? Where I'm at, it's the only thing, which is in the middle, which last year, 2 years ago, I brought in like $4,000 worth of dirt just so I could get grass to grow on it and make it look halfway decent, okay? So that's the only reason why I suggested Dillon with Langworthy, and then everything past behind Langworthy, which is Thomas. Not all Thomas, but behind it, okay? So I guess what I'm saying is I myself, I don't know who's right, I don't know who's wrong, until Dave gets there to somebody to survey it to find the pins. And unfortunately, I'll do whatever I need to do, but what I'm saying is just because I cut the grass, it's not a big deal. If it needed to come down and we made an agreement where it would need to come down because of whatever reason, because you guys are gonna put curb and gutter in there, it's gotta come down. If I go to my property line, most likely I'm probably gonna move it back a little bit from there. So either way, it'd have to come down if you guys did put a street in there. I would feel that it would have to come down. So again, like I said, I'm gonna have Dave there. He's supposed to be there Wednesday. I'll know where the property lines are. I mean, it's only a fence. I'm just trying to clean stuff up and make it look respectable, because so far, it's been turning out really nice. So, like I said, thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
I want to clarify a couple other things. Like when you're looking at the area, one of the rules that we have is that you can only develop property where there are roads. And so when you look at, like obviously the building that the Nappers own abuts Washington, which is why that could be there. And then if they were to develop the eastern side of their lot over here on Thomas, that would be there. But in order to ever develop this, like a road has to go in. Unless it's like one big ginormous lot that would front here and then be back that way. The same, like Jason can't develop back here separately and parcel that off. And so as you make these decisions, like as a staff person, if you would talk to Phil, Marty, everybody, like our overall thing is don't bail on right-of-ways because you eventually regret it. But I also think there's like trying to be reasonable and looking at things. So I feel like there is at least adequate room. It doesn't make it right. Again, I don't subscribe to people doing things on purpose because like who wants to be here tonight to talk about this? No one. But at least here, the only way that this, they talk about, like I've heard, I think, Al, you talked about if it ever got subdivided and you had a couple different lots there. It's zoned commercial. So that's just something to remember, that if it were to ever be developed further, minus one ginormous east-west parcel that abutted Thomas Street, we would have to put the road in, which would mean the fence, if you went with the more lenient version, you would have to take the road, put it in. Even if it was like a stub, halfway, you wouldn't have to necessarily make it a through road.
Just real quick. Looking up and down anymore. Jason's mentioned it twice, and I'm not so sure I even heard him correctly, that he either discussed with us dividing up DeLong or would discuss. Let me be very clear. There's been no discussion with them about dividing it up yet, but I may not have heard that correctly.
He said
I think what he was saying is if it were to be
And I appreciate that.
if it were to be vacated, when you vacate land to a new random person, it goes back to the abutting owners. If
Yes.
one person wanted to say, I don't want it, it can go to one. A common practice is you split it down the middle and you give it to both sides.
Thank you for everybody clarifying. Secondly, a lot of discussion of turning, coming in off of Thomas and everything. That's not the issue now. Coming in off of Washington and backing things in is the issue. And this can be kept simple. There's no chain link on the posts that exist. So it would be easy at this point to take it out instead of kicking the can down the road, and then there's fencing and there's all the other stuff on it, which creates more expense for somebody down the road. There's just posts. Take the post out, handle the problem now, and stop kicking the can down the road, but down the street. Thanks again.
So I would suggest one of the two things needs to be decided. If you feel like you need more time, it can certainly be delayed. Or, as I said, I wrote the resolution with all the whereas statements, and then you have number 1 or number 2 on page 39 of your packet.
Well, I feel that if Jason's willing to get it surveyed, or to check to find the pins, and if he's in the wrong, he needs to move it back. I don't think we want to open up a can of worms, down the road. I'd rather see him fix it now than later if it's wrong, but if it's right, then he's fine. That's how I feel. I mean,
I'm with you. Because you don't know until it's surveyed. No one's gonna know exactly
so
where
you
it's
find out where the
at.
pins are at, then he might be in the right, you might be in the wrong. But I feel that if it's not the right spot, let's move it to the right spot,
Yep. And then we'll deal with the other stuff later.
I agree, I think it should be, do the survey, and if it's wrong, it needs to be moved back to the right spot. And if he's fine,
He's fine.
he's fine.
Now, again, down there at the bottom of DeLong Street, there's a utility box and utility stuff down there that is smack dab in the middle of DeLong on the other end. There's no cut to get into DeLong at all.
Talking about the storm
sewer,
drain?
And you have electrical box right smack dab in the middle of that thing, okay? So I'm just saying again, if it would be a help for nappers that they had a way, instead of coming in sideways like they have to, like this, and then go in, if that was able to come in, they could then loop around, you know what I'm saying? Like, if that would be any help. I'm just saying, they are coming to find the pins, but I'm just saying, all the utilities and everything else is smack dab in the middle of that street. And it's been noted for a while.
Can you pull that picture back up, please?
Sure.
I think, did that show it?
It's the picture that I sent you separately.
Okay, hold on. gotta go
I
back.
sent, after I was
Looking
knowing
up-
that we were gonna do it,
looking
it
up.
was, so you can see, oh,
Is it the,
you lost your
Looking up
screen, Mike.
yeah, I know.
towards the east.
The one we were looking at earlier?
The one that
Yeah.
has the warehouse in it. What he's talking about is like where you would drive in, like if we were to ever put the road in, a structure has to be moved. Because there's a
And
storm, like
power.
where you have the curb and then there's the drain behind it and then it's kind of grassy. You can't see it. Oh, it's over here.
Give me a second here.
Is that green box there?
That's
Oh,
an
that's the
amendment.
transformer, but right here on the curb,
Oh, you want me to go back?
no, wait, go back to the other one. Yeah, you can see it right here, a little bit. So this is a curb cut, and look at how you can see that this, like, earth is, got a different contour, so
The water comes-
this is, like, that's again the point, like, nobody's driving in the actual right of way. So you can't drive in. There's a hydrant, an electrical transformer box, and then that's a storm system. So I don't know what you meant, Jason, anyway, what were you trying to
I think that's what you're saying.
I was
It's-
basically just saying, all the stuff's in right middle there.
They can't come off the road and go over the electrical box where his fence is at.
So to me, the only purpose of the survey is to know if you're making him move it, where he has to move it to. If you're saying he doesn't have to move it, he can still have it surveyed, but I think if you're saying he has to move it, then that's your vote.
Let's just get it surveyed and see where we're at.
So you want to have it surveyed and not make a decision tonight?
Yep.
And then come back in 2 weeks?
Mhm.
Did he say he could come next week or later this week? Can't remember what.
Finished a bunch of stuff up for Butte County today. He said he's gonna try to get in there tomorrow afternoon, if not Wednesday morning.
Okay, so by the time we do a packet in a week again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be done by the end of the week.
Okay, so just make sure he
Or
sends it.
rough draft or something.
Right. At least he'll be able to mark it off and know how many feet we're talking.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Motion by Delaney,
I'll second it.
second by Gale.
So
Roll call.
all we're voting on here, just a minute, I didn't even write that down. Sometimes I forget I'm clerking. There we go, so I'm like, wait. Okay, so it was Delaney, Gale,
Yep.
right? And we are saying that,
Surveyed and come back.
got it. All right, ready, Mr. Mayor, for roll call?
Roll call.
Hush,
Aye.
Gale,
Aye.
Delaney,
Aye.
Oliphant,
Aye.
Weber.
All right.
Number 18, consideration of resolution number 86-24, road improvements to Second Avenue, and it is Pierce to Buchanan Street.
So I sent you an email, I was waiting for these prices, I sent you an email this afternoon with the prices. Before we talk about this, I want to clarify that now that we have Mr. Weber on the city council, I want to make clear to everybody that financial conflicts are based on your individual household, not family members or things like that. And so Mark did, because we talked about it, when he voted for his brother to do the survey, that's not his household, and his brother's money doesn't affect his money. Whereas Mark works for Kleesner Construction, we talked about the fact that when there's a Kleesner construction bid, that Mark should abstain from those votes. Certainly, I think his experience adds value to that, and I don't think it means that he has to be silent. But obviously I would focus more on the conversation about like whether we should do something or not, and then be conscientious of the fact that approving the bid affects his employment. So there's that. Or if we were to ever hire, his Weber construction business again, to make sure you abstain for that. So with that said, the two quotes that we got, and these are under the threshold for having to do competitive bids. So the Kleesner construction bid is the low bid at $27,965. And what we want to make sure everybody, I don't know if everybody drove out there, but when you kind of look at it, you can see up on the map there that the edge of the land, or the asphalt that's in front of the current parking lot, is not bad. And then right around where the yellow mark starts, to the east of the parking lot, there's kind of a piece of pavement that's already been done more recently. And then going all the way to Pierce Street, there's pretty torn up asphalt. If you remember that Mr. Lucas has a patch that we have to fix. So that is here, right around here. And then where I drew everybody's attention to it is whenever you come out here and it rains, there's like a low spot right around here, and everything just pools there. And so for me, thinking about having a beautiful new library and then kind of having this janky road, that's not great. The other issue is that we have some spot replacement in the contract with Garling, a little bit up here, and then a couple pieces down here, like where Mr. Greenwood's driveway was, you have to rebuild the curb. So it's just a couple spot replacements. And then we will not have a grassy terrace where you have the curb to the sidewalk. The curb and the sidewalk will abut each other. So when you think about having kind of like not fabulous curb and then trying to butt up brand new concrete of the sidewalk next to it, we sort of led down this path of like, we have a pooling area, we have not fabulous curb left. I know Monica was out there with us at some of our meetings. We talked to Garling. So my intent, if you were to approve this work, we haven't approved anything for road work out of the city budget. If we were to do this, I have my every other week Garling meeting tomorrow. If we go forward, we would then delete the spot replacement of curb and gutter on the Garling contract. And then this, I've already told Garling that we would just do this on our side. Like, this will not be part of their contract, not a change order to it. There's a little bit added cost when they're the middle person and you pay like a 5% upcharge. So I think, so back to that. So the entire yellow section there on the north side would have complete replaced curb. The asphalt would be, or the current asphalt would get a milling off, and then they would put 2 inches of asphalt back on from curb to curb, and that entire, obviously the yellow I just kept up on the curb side, but it would be from the north curb to the south curb, the entire width of the road, all the way to the intersection of Pierce Street.
It will get a curb reveal mill, not an entire mill.
Okay.
Like we-
But
like we did
the
up in-
width of the road
Yeah,
is
yeah.
completely milled off.
No.
No?
The edge, like we
Oh.
talked,
Sorry.
and then, because the crown is not
Bad.
too severe yet.
Okay.
Is this a project we're doing this fall yet?
Mhm.
Fall, or wait till after the
I would
library's
say-
built?
Well,
would say the
once
fall.
that curb's done, which will
The
probably be
intention
fall.
was to do all the concrete yet this fall. So the sidewalk has to be in, because if we're opening, like their turnkey to us is supposed to be January. So they can't like do the sidewalks in the spring. and-
No, I
Yeah,
understand,
yeah.
I just don't,
Yep.
was wondering if they're gonna finish that, the
Yes.
day that project comes in afterwards.
Yeah, probably as late as, well, I don't know, maybe you were talking about sooner, but. Any thoughts? We obviously have money in the budget to do it, it's just, we haven't really allocated what street projects, so this would be part of the regular street improvements. Mr. Mayor, you got anything?
Would that be worth bundling the alley with this?
The alley's already
That's all,
bid out already
Okay.
on the Garland contract with Beatty doing the excavating, and Copper and River City have that concrete, or
Okay.
that bid for asphalt. So no.
should be good.
So you're supportive of this, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Any other concerns from the council? I just think it makes sense to try to get the whole area worked on and move along. So if you're going to consider the Resolution 8624, it'd be filling in the blanks with Kleesner Construction in the amount of 27, whatever it was, 27,965.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Gale,
I'll second.
second by Delaney, roll call.
Gale.
Aye.
Delaney.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Weber.
Abstain.
Plush.
Aye.
Number 19, consideration of resolution number 85-24, resolution to approve new personnel policy handbook.
So we talked about this a number of months ago where the council was supportive of bringing this straight back to the city council instead of going through the personnel committee. The labor attorney on the CMU side was the one that kind of went through and made sure whatever legal, like fair labor standard, any kind of policies that we were supposed to have, so things that we didn't have in there that are new are things like anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, retaliation. We didn't really have a good policy on employee conduct and discipline and how you deal with complaints on that. You'll also recall that we didn't have things like comp time in there that we had discussed prior to the beginning of the year. So I've pointed out the new things in the memo, and then just some updates in sections that already existed. So as an example, we used to have a 6-month probationary period. 3 months is probably more common, so we're recommending that. We used to have our old city hall hours in there, so we changed that from 8:30 to 4:30 and made it clear that because you're only here for 8 hours, it's a paid lunch and you just kind of work through. We used to have physical exams required for everybody. They're only now drug screens for CDLs. We added that there's federal mileage reimbursement if you have to use your own car. We added a few, if there's relatives that pass away that are not close to you and that are not listed, that we would add that we would allow 1 day for them as opposed to normally it's 3 days when it's a closer relative where you're maybe planning the funeral, things like that. You'll recall that we changed our uniform practices from providing uniforms to giving an allowance, so we changed that. Part-time employees are no longer required. CMU used to have a personal day at some point that morphed into them have one and we didn't, so we added that for everybody. Safety training, it would talk about that we would provide it, but it didn't require employees to attend, so I asked for that to be added. You'll remember that we did our new resolution for water and sewer grades where they get an increase for passing tests. Instead of having that in the handbook, we said that those rates are passed by resolution. The clinic used to be Unity Point that was listed where we sent people. The life insurance language was not correct, that it talked about our salaries, and we have a maximum of $50,000 that employees get. We reworded how we calculate health insurance premium raises. It was kind of worded funny. Sick leave was never clarified that it needed to be approved by your supervisor. And then we clarified that when holidays are on the weekends, that as the city administrator and utilities manager can be flexible with that with staff. So, the CMU board has already adopted this a few months back, and Chantel and I went through it. I made some change, or suggested some changes that we then discussed that she was supportive of, and those are reflected in here. If the council goes ahead to adopt this, then she'll, I think, take it back one more time to her board with a resolution. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I would recommend adoption.
I'll make a motion to that.
Motion by Oliphant,
Second.
second by Hush. Roll call.
Delaney?
Aye.
Oliphant?
Aye.
Weber?
Aye.
Hush?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Reports. Fred?
Once again, I just kind of want to reiterate this year's Hometown Days went off without a hitch. We had a lot of comments from people about First Avenue being open, and a lot of comments were they'd like to see First Avenue stay open. It was a lot easier traffic flow. Friday night, never had a hitch. Saturday night, had a couple little rain showers that went through, and that was about it. Otherwise, we really never had any issues with it. So it was just a good year. Everybody came together. And with what we had going on in the city with construction and traffic crisis, I'll call it, everything just seemed to work well this year. So just wanted to thank everybody that participated. And, that's all I have.
Thank you.
I got a question for you. Can you ride a horse down Main Street during the daytime?
I have.
No, like.
I know there was a guy last weekend or weekend.
Last
coming down
Sunday.
136. Yeah, and I understand he got chewed out for that because it wasn't his horse.
He was leading a horse too.
Yeah.
I was like, and he went back 4 or 5 times. It was like.
Yeah, I've done that.
I don't know if he was getting ready to take over your job for the parade or what.
Could
he
be.
was doing. Yeah.
No, I've actually done that with mine. Bring them into town, get them used to
Used to
traffic and the noise.
That's what we
and stuff
thought
like
he was
that,
doing,
so.
but I didn't know if we had anything.
Yeah,
against it.
I know you're not supposed to, like, I can't take my horse to the park, but I could ride it down the street. And I'm supposed to clean up after it too.
Yeah.
I would want to add to what Fred talked about. There's been conversations about the closing of First Avenue. And if you remember that last year we had our first, the Friday night event, Sunset Street Market. And one of the things that was talked about after that, which is, I think, between like Fred and Brad, what I heard was clarifying, because people said, well, how come you let them close? That event does not close Pierce Street. And I think what our policy, what we were trying to say going forward, is that if you close First Avenue, Pierce has to be open. The downside to Hometown Days is that we were closing both.
Correct.
And so I just think it's important that when we talk about not closing it, and that from a public safety perspective, that's what you guys want. The reason that we were supportive of that Friday night event was because Pierce Street is open during that event, and people can then get to the bridge, go on Pierce Street. And maybe that to be clarified, because there could be events that people do have on First Avenue that then people say, well, how come you're letting them close? But it's my understanding going forward is that because Pierce is open, at least during that event, that you were okay with First Avenue being closed as long as Pierce was open.
Right, and generally, we have Buchanan Street open on some of those events. Well, and depending upon what the event was. So, depending upon what the event was, yeah. Yeah, we kept Buchanan open this year, we had to. So.
My understanding was then that means Buchanan would have to be open, like if we talk about it for next year, if that's why you're bringing it up.
No, I'm understanding that the police department's position is that First Avenue should stay open on Hometown Days. Is that what you were just saying?
I said we had a lot of comments to that. It was.
I don't think that was
it was
decided,
actually-
though.
Yeah, it's not decided, but it worked well this year.
Well, I thought you said that it would stay open. That's what I heard you just say.
I said we had a lot of comments. People really liked that it was open during that time.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have an opinion on it yet. We haven't talked about next year.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was,
I thought it worked well.
yeah, I thought it did too, because then, I mean, and for use of the town, it just made
the event go on, and if you wanted to join, it just made getting there and getting out.
You could-
It worked nice.
You could get around town, you could get in and out of town.
And once you were out of your car and you were there, you just kind of walked in.
And
I mean, that
with losing the extra parking, and everything, we had First Avenue, we had parking spots there this year. So it worked, that worked out well. Otherwise, I don't know where people would have parked. I really don't. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Library furniture?
Monica, Melissa and I are going to Dubuque tomorrow morning to hopefully try out all the final decisions on the furniture, get our final price, and be able to hopefully proceed. I think they're also going to have fabrics and things like that for us to look at, so we'll be going there tomorrow morning. And then we'll have our Garling every other week meeting, which Monica will, in my absence, begin attending those meetings and be our city representative. Obviously, if there's something that affects finances, she'll have to take it further, but I think that she is the best person to be able to, there's sometimes just little questions about construction things, so I appreciate Monica's willingness to attend those meetings.
Good. Thank you. And city administrator?
I think the only thing, I got a hold of the Woodward Communications people. They will let us know prior to my departure if we've received any grant funding from them. I think that's our last grant that we're waiting on for the library that I've applied for, so hopefully we'll hear that. I think it was $17,000 that we asked for, so not sure what we'll get, but hopefully we'll get something.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this point, we have public comment. You have a limit of 3 minutes per person, only items on this agenda.
Nick Callahan, I'm owner of my butcher, next to the butcher block, and I was just having beer for the right-of-way stuff. This same kind of thing happened when I built our building, and it's happened when Scott Casey's building went up, it's happened in American Iowa, the grocery store, Mike Beck wants Pat Street closed. I think that's gotten dropped, I don't know where that's at anymore. But Mike has a street that goes right through 2 lots. So when this all gets done, it'd be kind of nice to the city to just kind of have one, Pat Street's the same way. I'm pretty sure the fence where you used to be is well into the city ground. And he moved the fence between me and him when I bought the lot, and we got along fine. He moved it like 6 feet. So that's all good, but the backside is still a street, Pat Street, that goes all the way up behind American Iowa. So I'm not saying you have to give up the land, but if you let people use the land, it makes more sense, I think. And I think that's what I understand, and that's what Richard Nelson of the tire place understands. He's over the ground. I think he's well aware of that. And I think he knows someday that if that street is gonna be improved, he's gonna have to move. And I think he knows that. So I just think it'd be nice if, there's multiple, that whole area out there is a mess. So if you did, when you settle this deal, just do it all, set precedent on what you're gonna do. That's
So,
all.
yeah, what Nick's talking about is on the west side of the back side of Nelson's, where I believe Mark's dad had a shop there. That fence is in the Pat Street right-of-way. Then the one that had to get moved was on Richard Nelson's south, which now abuts Nick's. And so when they did the survey, that's where they found out that, again, when people aren't paying attention to where their property lines are. So then when they surveyed their land, and Nick was able to go out there and see the pins when he purchased his land, that fence on the south side of Nelson's was over the edge there. And so we've talked about that. I had tried to say that it would be good for the CDC to partner with us because there's some of it that affects their lots, and then, that needs to be addressed.
If there's,
Nelson's is way over into that.
It's on the other side of the
What is
right-of-way.
road, so it's the same, pretty much situation as Jason's, where who's using what land of the cities and what roadway, so.
And I think even if you look, again, nobody's saying that what happened with this new fence is right, but when you look at, I believe going down to the west further, there's some alleyways, and there's alleyways everywhere where people put their sheds and lots of different things that are on city land. When it's not improved is when people are more guilty of it.
If there's nothing else for the betterment of the community, I need a motion.
Yeah, I
You
have
got
something. Were you able to nail down specific date, like, is Kathy gonna do the part-time stuff, or where are we at with?
To my
hiring?
understanding, she is.
Did we figure out what hours she's coming in and days?
Just Wednesday night and Saturday is all that I got from her.
Every week or last week?
I believe it's every week.
Yeah, I'm just,
Because are we sticking with Kathy, or are we gonna try to find someone in the interim, or like, have we gotten any applicants, Lisa, yet for the city clerk position?
we have one applicant so far.
How long is that posted for?
I had said that we would be reviewing resumes all the time, and that we had our first kind of hard look at them on September 4th. So next week, Wednesday. My concern is just that I don't know what's not being done. And so, like, I'm not necessarily, it's certainly easier for, like, payroll is this coming Friday. I did email her because I needed to be able to tell Davis when to get the pool stuff, because he's in school and doesn't come back until the weekend. So my email just said, I need to let Davis know, and I put Davis on the email, and she did reply, I'll either do it Friday or Saturday. Other than that, I've received nothing about when she's working or what she's doing. She did leave me the bills all ready to go, so as soon as the mayor signs them, I can put them in the mail. And I'm assuming that the ACH payments will go out automatically, but I thought we discussed having a conversation so that we understand, like, either we're just saying she gets to do whatever and nobody knows for sure, or we at least need to have a conversation about what, so that somebody knows what's not being done.
It'd probably be good to line somebody up interim-wise.
How long did you guys say you were advertising?
I said September 4th. It's more like, at least for a couple of weeks, it's more just understanding, like, I have a debt report that I wasn't clear on. She did say that she could do it. It's due this weekend, but I have no idea when any work is being done, so I might just try to do it myself. I reached out to the financial advisors to help make sure that I was using the right, it's not a difficult form, but it's just, if you're okay with just not for sure knowing what's not being done, I'm fine with that. I'm only here for 2 weeks, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my understanding, just from talking to Kathy, which I'm assuming you know as well, because you've talked to Kathy, is that she's just continuing to do the work that's on her desk, minus obviously checking her email every day, which is something that I told her that if she wanted me to do, that I would do. In addition, I know she asked me if I would mail her bills for her tomorrow. So I don't know about hours. I know every week she's kind of picking her hours, which again, I feel like she's telling you. And she told me as well. And I know you and I and the mayor met, and we were supposed to have a meeting today to talk about this, and no one said anything to me about meeting. So I also had the concern about Lisa leaving, and just in regards to, like, I'm the lone man out at City Hall once you're gone, and so I just want to make sure the work continues. I've offered to help. I just need to understand what that means and what you all would like me to do to make that happen, so.
And to
just offering
clarify
to meet
what
with you and
what I said when Chantal asked us that week is I said it's up to the council who's going to do this work. And that we had talked about having, like, we're not doing their work and they're not doing our work. Not that that's a hard line, but until the council gives me direction on who I'm telling to do stuff, like, I'll do again, this is where some of the disconnect is that no one told me anything about the bills. So I can certainly mail the bills myself, like, it's not a problem, but that's where if Kathy communicating with the mayor and Chantel is okay, and that you're fine with that, and that I don't know, that's fine. But I don't know, and I didn't get anything about that conversation.
I think the confusion is she was gone and you had sent a message saying you weren't going to work in City Hall anymore. So I think that was the confusion. She didn't think you were here, probably. So, and I wasn't here Saturday when she was here to talk to her and tell her anything. I just feel like he's the one that's been communicating with her.
So it sounds like we need to get somebody hired for, as an interim, because in 2 weeks, we're gonna have no one. And as much as I appreciate you offering to help, I don't feel like that's right for us, the city, to throw all of that on Chantel.
It's time to have somebody here and get started in the
Yeah.
process now.
And I had asked about having that on the agenda, and you kind of made it seem, Mayor, like you had stuff handled, or I don't,
I've talked to her and, she's doing stuff, but it's a little sketchy.
not sketchy, it's just you can't do.
Yeah.
She was here maybe 3 hours on
Yeah, I
Wednesday
don't
and
think- I mean,
5
I don't-
hours on Saturday.
I mean, I guess I trust her. She said she was gonna get the work done, so I just think that the fallout is like, obviously the day-to-day, taking care of that when we're here.
Of the
And then the emails, making sure there's not an email coming in that no one's checking on her computer when she's not here. So,
So Lisa, can we not take any action on that tonight about getting someone hired interim?
I mean, you're not gonna hire somebody this second anyway. We have to like figure out, are you trying to get an interim me or an interim Kathy? Because if Kathy's willing to continue to do payables and payroll and banking stuff, like, that probably is handled. Like, to me, that was like, if I was not leaving, that was my bigger concern, because I don't know how to pay bills, I don't know how to pay people, and I don't know how to do payroll taxes, but, I have no idea, like, what the plan would be to get, because most of the people, when I was gonna be here, I was looking for people that would be able to, like, remote in and kind of do what Kathy's doing, although she's coming here because she's been here, but
I believe we need the day-to-day more than anything.
For now, I mean, we
You
need
know,
both,
I mean, our
but
projects,
day-to-day needs to be done right away.
That needs to be done
we
sooner
need to
than later.
find a clerk and get that.
option you have is, I met with the person that applied on Saturday because they just had a lot of questions about the position, so I met with them for an hour. They do not want their name out because their current person that they work for, which is a local person, has no idea. And so it's very important that that name be kept confidential, but that's certainly one possibility, is you either wait until the 4th, or if you want to try and bring this person in sooner, even if you still wait to make a decision until the 4th to see if someone else applies, at least you would have that. I mean, I have a week after that. so you wouldn't have a
do
big gap.
interim?
So
No, they have a current full-time
Yeah.
job, but I'm saying, like, if you, go ahead, Nick, sorry.
So we have, if she does Wednesday and Friday this week, next week is the 4th. We're gonna find out if that individual is gonna work or not gonna work, and then I think we go to that point, see if that's gonna work or not gonna work. If it's not, then we need to get somebody in temporarily and move. If it is, then we got Kathy working, hopefully, to help train the next person coming in.
Yeah, I think she said that she was willing
The
to do it.
mayor, double check with Kathy and make sure she is coming in 2 days a week,
Yeah.
And it would be appreciated if we can know when.
just so Lisa
Yeah,
knows.
if you-
Yeah.
Because the thing, like, last week, I thought when she was coming in Wednesday that she'd do bills, so then I spent all of my Tuesday doing bills, which then, it's fine that they didn't get done till Saturday, but it's just, communication would be helpful. To kind of know what days and what is happening on those days, I would appreciate. My gut feeling right now is that the best way to handle these interviews, because you're losing both of us, is that maybe we pick a special night sooner than later, and if you, like, I think the person who applied at least has potential to be a good candidate. If I didn't, I wouldn't suggest, but maybe we want to ramp up an interview sooner, and I think it just needs to be with the whole council.
It does.
Last time we did it with personnel, I was going to be here, so I think if the whole council, if we could figure out a time, like, later this week, in an evening, if the person's available, maybe this weekend, before the holiday, and then know that, like, just
Who's
say to that
available.
person, like, we'd like to bring you in, we'll keep it confidential, everybody's got to promise that, because it's just not cool if someone's got a job here. And then we could say, we did have this deadline of September 4th, and we're going to hold off, but if you were comfortable with the person and just wanted to make sure the person does not have municipal experience. And then you could say that on the 4th, if you're comfortable with that person and no municipal experience comes in, you could be willing to offer the job, and then if someone with experience comes in, you could try to have a second night planned later next week, bring them in, and try to at least get them to be giving a 2-week notice. Chantal can certainly handle, if Kathy's still willing to help, a week or two, but to not have a long-term plan does not seem wise, to have no one here. Does that seem?
I think that sounds like.
I've been contacted by 3 different people, so I feel like more applicants are probably.
Okay. So, yeah, I'd say let's get the process rolling.
Yep.
And I agree with the entire council meeting, and we need to take the first applicant, probably figure out what everybody's schedule is, so we can do as soon as possible.
Do you want to try and do it yet this week? So we have 20, like, you can't do it tomorrow because it's too late. But you could do Wednesday night, Thursday night, which would be 27, 28, 29,
Thursday night and give enough time to contact.
and see if that person's available, obviously.
Right. I agree.
If there are other people that are considering applying, they need to do it soon, because then we could potentially do multiple this week yet.
Yep. I agree.
And we could even post, like repost, like reminder,
Yeah.
you know, due to the pending lack of staff here, the council may consider applications that come in Tuesday, Wednesday, as soon as interviews on Thursday or something. So Thursday, is everyone free?
Yep.
What time?
No, I'm golfing.
What time? Would you rather do earlier or later?
Anytime after 5.
Megan, what do you have?
Anytime after 5.
Chad, you're home by then?
6 o'clock.
So 6 o'clock you want?
That works.
So Thursday at 6, my first step will be to call the person who applied, see if they can make it. If that's the case,
You send out a calendar thing.
I'll send out a calendar thing, and then I'll do the agenda. Obviously, it'll be in closed session, and then if anyone seems like worth an interview that adds before that, I'll try to get a hold of them and see if they can be available. And then we can decide that night if we're gonna pick a date for next week.
They're all worth an interview.
What?
They are all worth an interview.
So you think if you get 20 people applying, you interview
I
20?
don't think we're gonna get 20.
Just saying.
You had to say it, Martin.
Nope.
didn't you? You
Yep.
had to say it.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Gale,
I'll second.
second by Delaney, all in favor?